Today on Deep Guild, we talk to poet and songwriter Russell Hoke. Some call him an outsider artist. I call him a cosmic outlaw.
Oh, thank you, Lee, for inviting me.
People give a lot of credit to figures like Daniel Johnston, and deservedly so to a certain extent.
Justifiably so, yeah.
I've always felt that you were in touch with something a little bit deeper than what he was in touch with, and his fame was deserved. But I always felt like you should be more widely appreciated than I think you've been. I think you've been quite widely appreciated in some circles, in some underground circles, but I feel like you should get out there more to the public, because I think a wide group of people would probably appreciate your stuff.
Oh, thanks, Lee.
Yeah, I actually have a song queued up in the hopper here.
Which one is that?
I actually just chose one at random. I don't have any specific song, but just for fun, we're gonna play it, and then I want you to tell me about it. Here's the song.
Way down in the valley, there was a girl who died. And if you listen very close, you can hear her voice at night. It goes, it goes, it goes. And that is all she says. No one knew her name, and she didn't know her own. But if you listen close at night, you can hear her histories moan. They go. And that is all they say.
Way Down in the Valley.
Yeah, it's called Way Down in the Valley. One feature of this song is that, the voice says it goes, and then
Yeah, there's no word that describes.
Right.
If you see the lyric printed out, it's blank. It's a quotation, an open quotation, and a long line of blankness, and a period and a closed quotation.
But it says if you listen very close, you can hear her voice at night. So you would assume you'd hear a female voice.
But it says silence.
All right. I mean, it's not that it's not that surprising necessarily of a trick, but I'm wondering if that's like a convention in bluegrass music where you're like, and I talked to the devil, and the devil said,
I've never encountered that.
No. It's if you haven't heard it, and if you invented that, I think it's brilliant.
Well, thanks, Lee.
Yeah, I always thought it was pretty interesting, because it's a captivating melody, and the most captivating, the interesting thing about it is the chorus is not sung, but it's a melody that is implicitly sung by some ghostly apparition. Or
I was always looking for like a sense of mystery in music. Well, not always, but a great deal of the time I was looking for that. I was like trying to find the sound that would exemplify another world, another land.
Yeah. You talk about that a lot in your poems, about another world, a better world, a higher world, or something
more
like
peaceful one,
a more peaceful world. But you never put it in particularly like standard religious terms.
I'm glad to hear that.
Oh yeah, but so I've never heard you articulate like a any particular, obviously no already formed established theology or established religion, but I just as a question to throw it out there to you, because I've always been a little bit curious. Can you articulate your idea of like a higher reality or another world? Does it exist? Like, do you go there when you die, or is it just like a collective unconscious, or is it strictly immaterial or imaginary, or is it just a deeper ground of being? Or how would you articulate this other world that you often refer to in your songs and in your poems?
I'm glad you offered that option of the collective unconscious. I do believe in that.
Yeah, yeah,
I love Jung's work, and
yeah.
but as far as like a place that you go to, I don't think necessarily. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that I would prefer to go to absolute oblivion than anywhere, because I don't
Really?
want to do anything. I don't want any
Yeah,
more pain, and I've had enough joy. I'm satisfied with what I've got.
yeah.
I was watching a documentary about Giger, and he said he felt that way too. He felt like, oh, I've done what I wanted to do. Why do I need to continue? I'm not greedy.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
But I do like the idea. If it must continue, I would like the idea that maybe our imaginations can create our own next reality when this one shifts out of the picture.
yeah. I mean, Tolkien alluded to that. I don't know to the extent to which he believed it, but there were kind of breadcrumbs or ideas in his work that, first of all, he thought that the process of artistic inspiration was coming from on high or some kind of collective unconscious, that he felt like he was translating or documenting a world as a scribe, a world that actually existed somewhere else,
It certainly seemed like it was real.
rather than creating it out of whole cloth or creating it out of nothing. And there's a story he wrote called Leaf by Niggle. I think you remember we read that. And the implication was that he was going on a journey, and it kind of seemed like this was the journey he was taking. The journey was death, basically. The metaphor was that he was going to die. And when he got to the afterlife, he saw a tree that he'd been always painting throughout his life. He kept painting this tree, but when he died, he saw the tree that he'd been working on his whole life. And I got the sense that Tolkien actually, on some level, believed that there was, that there's a thing you're communing with that gives you creative inspiration. And when you pass on to the next world or cease to be, that somehow these ideas are there for you. On some level, I wish
do that, and it's a pleasant destination. That I'm all for it.
Yeah,
but I don't mean, how would we know?
Right
for sure.
So you've been putting out vinyl now for a number of years. I think was the year 2000 the first time you put out a vinyl record?
Yes, our friend Joe Reynolds told me when we were visiting in Las Vegas years ago. He said, "Rusty, you need to put out a collection of songs on a vinyl record." And I thought about it for years, and I finally just decided to go ahead and do it, because it would be vinyl is always my favorite way to experience music anyway.
Me too, yeah.
So finally did it in the year 2000, and then many years went by, and I thought I didn't have any distributing ideas at the time, so I just gave most of them away or took them to used bookstores or record shops. And then in 2008, our friend Stephanie Russell told me that she knew someone who could help get me just in touch with distributors. So I wrote to him, and he got me in touch with Dawson Prater in Chicago. And Dawson wanted me to send me as many of the records I just put out. It was called Magic of My Youth, which is a 2-record set, as I had, as many as I could send him. So he did, and he sent them all over the world. And I was on Discogs for the first time. And I realized, hey, this is a great way to do it. I'll just send them to record shops all over the place. I sent them to Japan. I sent them to Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And I started putting out a record or two every year for about 5 years.
That's great.
until I had gone through the catalog.
Yeah.
The old tapes. And
yes.
Some more recent things.
So these were mostly old recordings that you committed to vinyl, but a lot of those early songs, they were recorded on a boombox, and they have this certain lo-fi character to them that's quite
I think
charming.
they sound better than some of the studio recordings.
Yeah, they retain a charm. I'm always partial to some of your earliest songs.
Those are my personal favorites, probably.
Right. Mm-hmm.
My favorite songs, of course, are those mysterious banjo songs.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, they're very mysterious. I will play some.
I come from Twisted Mountain, where flows a perfect fountain, but I know the mountain's hurt, it's creased, and it bleeds. I come from Twisted Mountain, where flows a purple fountain, and I know the mountain's hurt, it's, and so I know danger when one takes for one's own dream the waters of the fountain stream.
I think, when I was a youth, a teenager, this is back in the day when there was just, you'd have a Walkman. You put a tape.
Sony Walkman.
Sony Walkman. You could put a tape in there and go on a walk or a jog. And I just remember listening to some of your more mysterious, mystical banjo songs, and some of them had a very dark aesthetic to them. And I would be jogging or running in the middle of the night through the desert with the moon
really?
and the stars outside of Las Vegas.
Oh, I love that idea.
Oh yeah, it was like, this is just really it's a very evocative thing to do.
Thanks, Lee. I'm glad that was provided for you.
It was.
Galaxies swirl in still air, their choices whirl through angel hair, descending on sleeping brains with life's circular rain. The seasons change like reactions in the oneness of round brain. Then you meet your
But then there's a song you've written more recently, and it said something like, "We'll give them all Walmart, assure them that they're smart." You know that song?
Oh yes, that one is that makes a lot of people don't like that song because it's too mean, it's too brutal.
Yeah. It's a little bit, it's cheeky, and it might be not very politically correct by today's standards. But I think there's some truth to it. The idea being that, like, I think there was a line like, the women are now out there kicking asses with the men, and they're never coming home again.
Oh yes.
Like, women joining the workforce and just being a wage
Nothing
slave.
wrong with
like
that.
The men.
Except that nobody's home. nobody's home. Somebody's got to be home.
Yeah.
Or kids.
The mean sirens sneer. They know I don't drink beer. They know I never want to rule the world like they do. They talk behind my back. They think they're what I lack. If only I were like the hunky drunks they pray to. I'll stay a fool. I never will be cool. That costs a lot, and when you're old he'll reimburse you. I'll stay at home and listen to Stravinsky all alone, remembering when I called my planet home. Put women in a suit, gave them all the boot, from home where they were beaten by their brutes, called husbands, mailed forbidden fruit. threw home life down the chute, so everyone can make more stuff to clog the world with. There's one thing I know, not a soul should go industrialized to fit in with the legalized sin. The women now are out there kicking asses with the men, and they're never coming home again. Tell 'em, brother.
But that was a great song. I think both melodically and just the lyrics were just great.
It was called the Dumpster Divers Black and Blues.
Right.
Because at that time I was doing a lot of dumpster diving. Not out of necessity, just something I enjoy.
Out of curiosity.
I love to find things that other people throw away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you used to tell me that. You'd say, like, you'd call me at 3 a.m. Lee, I found a can of corn.
I also found a box of James Avery silver.
About what?
I found a box of silver in a dumpster one night, but unfortunately the girl's address was at the bottom, so I found her on Facebook and had to give it back to her. But at least I found it for her, right?
Yeah. Are you saying like actual bars of silver?
Not bars. No, it was jewelry.
Oh, silver jewelry.
It was a collection of jewelry that she had been robbed, and someone threw the silver away. I guess they took the gold. Tell
us the story about the time you went to college and decided to not go to college.
Oh, when I was, I went back to school. I did 1 year at Incarnate Word College in San Antonio, and then I went to Arkansas because I had a piping scholarship and academic scholarship.
What school is this?
It was called Arkansas College.
Mm-hmm.
And the last day I was there, I had already decided I was going to go back to Texas. The last day I was there, I was in the lunchroom, and I was talking with the person in the line in the cafeteria about favorite authors, and he said, "Well, my favorite author is Edgar Allan Poe." So I said, "Oh, mine too." And I grabbed his arm and I started reciting The Raven. And then I started reciting The Raven loudly in front of the entire cafeteria, pacing back and forth. And when I got to the last stanza, when I finished, I took a deep bow, and everyone roared. And I thought, that's for you, Poe. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the Raven nevermore.
Awesome. Didn't you also leave that school by 2 wheels?
Well, I tried to run. I started riding my bicycle away from it one night. I thought, I'm going to ride to Texas just to show everybody how much I can't be here. I thought I would do it, but I only got 40 miles. I made it to a town called Bald Knob, which is 40 miles from Batesville, where the college was. And I thought, well, maybe I should just go back and take my history test after all. So I started riding back, and the guy that sold me the bicycle picked me up.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow.
Yeah, bicycling was too far. I couldn't have done that.
But you bicycle 40 miles,
I almost got hit by some trucks as I was riding.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the night, and there was no shoulder on the road. And I was going up very steep hills. It was at the foot of the Ozarks. A very dangerous venture.
I've been intrigued by your poetry for most of my life now, and it seems like you've kind of finally delivered your magnum opus and released your complete poems of Russell Hoke. You've been working on it for many, many years, and I think it's finally done.
Yeah, in the early 80s, when I was in high school, I discovered Emerson and Blake. And once I read Blake's songs and lyrics, his short works, I started to receive them. I started to get these ideas, and I was always writing. They'd come in a flash, and I'd write them down and put them in a drawer. And after a few months, I noticed I had a pretty big stack, and I started editing them. And I bought some blank books and started working on them. And I had this idea that I wanted to have a collection like Blake had.
Yeah.
So it fired me to keep on doing it. And by the time you and I were friends, I had maybe about a couple hundred poems.
Oh yeah.
And a few stories. So it's just probably like everybody starts out. You have somebody who inspires you, and then you want to just keep digging, keep looking, and say it in a magical way that I wanted to write things that if I read them, that they would enchant me over again.
Speaking of enchantment, you have one poem called Enchantment?
It's called Enchanted, yeah.
Enchanted, yes, sorry.
Mm-hmm. One's called Entranced, which is...
Entranced. I think that's the one I was thinking of. You want to look at that?
Sure. Oh, I have retitled it The Trance.
Okay.
Now it's called The Trance.
All right.
Page 190. During breakfast by a window with a grand view to the sea, a boy of 11 grew the age of heaven. The apocalypse set free, winged horses flew and galloped through the pathways of his brain, his spirit so transformed to fit within this flightless plain. He exited an open door and fled from walls of shelter, to step onto the scattered sand of beauty, helter-skelter. Soiled no further by the plaint of shifting temporal ground, he strolled a golden carpet meant for gods who'd laid it down. His small heart began to swell when he found an empty shell that had been by eons smoothed. Both their entities were soothed. He soon trod home, no longer alone. His mother was speaking on the telephone with the neighbors just next door. When he showed her what he'd found, she softly coughed a "that's nice" sound, then talked some more. But though she praised it lightly, the shell reflected brightly. The youngster watched it many days. 'Twas as if a mermaid's tail were cleansing its sheen with wisps of haze of forgotten magic's ways. One misses out on nothing when one is always dazed. Worried father spoke to mother, "I fear our boy is crazed." They hauled his body to a doctor further in their maze, who said, "Your son requires assistance." They locked him in a room, and his parents felt that they should rest by structuring his doom. While they with plans were ranting, the child began his chanting. Clearly I hear voices near me from a shadowy secret place, where honesty must mirror me in the endless inner space. What once had life must have life now. I know not why, but only how. Lives die within sweet concord's flow that sings this song of grace. If inner space is endless, then it may as well be out. If outer space is inner space, their threshold is but doubt. So everything that lives must converge with all that is, as everything that dies to the source of being flies. They confined him to a padded cell, built from their abandoned dreams, puzzled that their inflicted hell elicited no screams. While they continued with their ranting, the crownless king resumed his chanting. A silence dwells within the shell, it seems to the hollow crowd, but calling in its hall are voices chorusing the sea. To hear them you must listen well, beyond the realm of sound. Then with mystery's reticence, they find their harmony.
Yeah, that scene kind of struck with me when I first read it. and it hasn't changed much. A few lines have kind of shifted a little bit. The sense of it hasn't really changed.
Well, it's just about a boy that's misplaced. His spirit doesn't fit into the scheme into which he was born, and he's looking for this magical thing, and he finds this shell which whispers the secret that he's been seeking, whispers something that he can't translate to the world, and they're not even interested in it anyway.
Right.
But so he has what he considers to be sufficient truth from this discovery, but it's irrelevant to his environment, and so it's as if he's speaking to no one about nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a scene here where he says, "Clearly I hear voices near me from a shadowy secret place."
He thinks it's clear.
These are voices that he's hearing. They're coming from the shell.
Right, and clearly, and that means two things. Like, it's clear to him, but it's also invisible to the people that can't see it.
Like transparent. Yeah, right. That's good. That's good. It's innovative, that use of the word clearly, in that it's something that's both perceptible, but also it's so clear that you miss it.
That's one thing I always liked about your work. You always played with such like double meanings and
yeah,
like in idle sounds, for instance. Idle sounds or baleful sounds.
Yeah.
And work is idle when I am bound to do a lot of naught, indulged in idle thought. Like if you're indulged in something, you're not idle, but you're indulged in an idle thought, so it might as well be idleness.
Right. And just the song being called Idle Sounds, I'm singing the song Idle Sounds, and so I'm not idle.
But you're idle.
And also, I'm calling the song I'm singing.
Same theme as this poem, right?
Yeah, I'm also calling the song I'm singing baleful. Like I'm singing. like why would I do something so terrible to sing a baleful song? But yeah, it does remind me of some of my work, because I also have my idea of the whisper. Like I've always thought of again like a boy or something who hears a whisper that no one hears.
And the faintest star is brightest.
The faintest star is brightest. You see a star that no one sees. So that's a common trope and a common theme. Also, Tolkien uses this idea of finding a shell. I can't remember the name of the poem right off the bat, but I'll probably just put it in the notes or something. But it's a Tolkien poem where it's like, I walked by the sea and there came to me, I think it's called the Sea Bell. I walked by the sea and there came to me as a star beam on the wet sand, a bright shell like a sea bell. Trembling it lay in my wet hand. And so he finds a shell. It's similar. And I think it was a similar thing. Like
image, right?
What's that?
It must be an archetypal image, because
from that
Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote a poem called The Chambered Nautilus, which with the same theme.
Yeah, in the Tolkien poem, I can't remember whether it's the voice or something he hears from the shell, but something prompts him to go on a journey across the ocean in a conch shell or in a little boat or something. And so I don't know if it's a metaphor for artistic pursuit, but he's hearing something and it's prompting him to follow it. Not to harp on the shell topic, but like there's that famous painting, The Birth of Venus, where she's coming from a conch shell, not a conch shell, like a cockle shell.
Cockle shell.
Yeah, like a clam shell. So I don't know. I think the clamshell might have some kind of sexual innuendo or something. I could be wrong on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Those Italians. Thank you so much for coming out, and hopefully we could do this again.
Sure.
All right. Take care. Rusty.
Thanks, Lee.
All right. Bye. I'll talk to you later.